Spiritual Gumbo, Hot Pursuit, and the Firstborn Sacrifice. Now, we left off in the end of chapter 12, coming into 13. Pretty much, firstborns get touched in Egypt. Great crying, whole lot of sad singing and flower bringing. Can you dig it? And what happened was, these people called the children of Israel, and certain other stories called the Hapiru, and certain other stories called the Hyksos. See, these people, you see, so grievously did the Egyptians not want them there anymore that they said, you know what? Get the hell out. And while the people were leaving, they said, well, can we just have all that silver and gold y'all got? They said, you can take it, just leave. So they left. Now, hearing this, and as much we pick up in chapter 13, verse 1, and we just pick right up. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, sanctify to me every firstborn, first produced, opening every womb among the children of Israel, both of man and beast. It is mine. And Moses said to the people, remember this day in which ye came forth out of the land of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. For with the strong hand the Lord has brought you forth thence. And leaven shall not be eaten. For on this day ye go forth in the month of new corn, which is April. And it shall come to pass when the Lord thy God hath brought thee into the land of the Canaanites, and the Kittites, and Amorites, and Evites, and Jebusites, and Girgashites, and Perizzites, which he sware to thy fathers to give thee, a land flowing with milk and honey, thou shalt perform this service in this month. 6 days ye shall eat unleavened bread, and on the 7th day is a feast to the Lord. 7 days ye shall eat unleavened bread. Nothing leavened shall be seen with thee, neither shalt thou have leaven in all thy borders. Stop right there. No beer, no bread, whatever you use yeast for, nothing. None of that. Get it out of here. Get the yeast out of here. And it affects people's pH's level, all kinds of stuff. Yeast can affect your body in way different ways. Anyway, let's just keep going. Verse 7. 7 days shall ye eat unleavened bread. Nothing leavened shall be with thee. Neither shalt thou have leaven in all thy borders. So nobody's going to have it. And thou shalt tell thy son in that day. Verse 8. Therefore, slow down. And thou shalt tell thy son in that day, saying, therefore the Lord dealt thus with me, as I was going out of Egypt, and it shall be to thee a sign upon the land and a memorial before thine eyes, that the law of the Lord may be in thy mouth, For with a strong hand the Lord God brought thee out of Egypt, and preserve ye this law according to the times of the seasons, from year to year. Verse 11. And it shall come to pass when the Lord thy God shall bring thee into the land of the Canaanites, as he swore to thy fathers, and shall give it to thee, that thou shalt set apart every offspring opening the womb, the males to the Lord. Every one that opens the womb out of the herds, or among thy cattle, as many as thou shalt have. Thou shalt sanctify the males to the Lord. Every offspring opening the womb, opening the womb of the ass, thou shalt change for a sheep. So he's saying that you're not going to take the ass's baby. You're going to take a sheep instead, because you're not going to sacrifice that to the Lord, because the ass is unclean. But if you have an ass, right on. You see what I'm saying? And I'm sure that this is... Anyway, we'll just keep reading. This means that this is what they would have been in ownership of predominantly outside of their cattle, if that makes sense. And asses, not horses. Anyway, I'm not even going to go into that. You can keep it pushing. Verse 13. Every offspring opening the womb of the ass thou shalt change for a sheep. And if thou wilt not change it, thou shalt redeem it. Every firstborn of man of thy sons shalt thou redeem. And if thy son should ask thee hereafter, saying, what is this? Then thou shalt say to him, with a strong hand the Lord brought us out of Egypt, out of the house of bondage. And when Pharaoh hardened his heart so as not to send us away, he slew every firstborn in the land of Egypt, both the firstborn of man and the firstborn of beast. Therefore do I sacrifice every offspring that opens the womb, the males, to the Lord, and every firstborn of my sons will I redeem. And it shall be for a sign upon thy hand, and immovable before thine eyes. For with a strong hand the Lord brought thee out of Egypt. And when Pharaoh sent forth the people, God led them not by the way of the land of the Philistines, because it was near. For God said, lest at any time the people repent when they see war and return to Egypt. So they get scared. Be like, oh, I don't want none of this. And God led the people round by the way to the wilderness. And this is when the sea people, those abomination things, were coming into the land. Big, black, white, red, and whatever other color giants were coming from the middle of the planet, invading the topsoil. Henceforth, that other line of the original inhabitants and the occupiers of the land going forth. Not just the children of Israel being occupiers. Verse 18. And God led the people round by the way of the wilderness to the Red Sea. And in the fifth generation of the children of Israel, the children of Israel went up out of Egypt. Did you hear that? The fifth generation of the children of Israel. Thank you. So that would be his great grandchildren. People are like, how do you know that? I'm like, because the first generation is Israel. The second generation are his sons. The third generations are his grandsons. The fourth generations are his great-grandsons. And the fifth generations are his great-great-grandsons. And even if you want to say great-great-great-grandchildren, whatever. You can add one if you want to, but I'm just telling you how I see it. Going forward. Verse 19. And Moses took the bones of Joseph with him, for he had solemnly adjured the children of Israel, saying, God will surely visit you, and ye shall carry my bones hence with you. Look, Joseph was like, look, bruh, don't leave me here. They didn't take nobody else with them, unless other dudes had their bones buried not in Egypt, like Judah and Levi and all them. But if they did, then that means that they got buried in Egypt, and that means that they're still there. But Joseph was like, nah, y'all bringing me up out of here. Y'all, just like you buried my daddy not in Egypt, I'm not getting buried in Egypt. But he didn't. But he took that charge of not burying his father in Egypt. That's heavy. That's heavy. Verse 20. And the children of Israel departed from Succoth and encamped in Otham by the wilderness, and God led them in the day by a pillar of cloud to show them the way, and in night by a pillar of fire. And the pillar of cloud failed not by day, nor the fire by night, before all the people. So it's saying that the cloud didn't disperse and the fire didn't go out whenever it was leading them. So that was the come on, the Messiah took on the form of a cloud. And then this fire. And then people are like, that's the Most High. I'm like, man, calm down. I could say it's just an angel. But we're not going to go there. We're just going to say that these are different levels of spectra, all operating at once. And if people can really appreciate that, then they'll appreciate the message. Verse 1 of chapter 14. And the Lord spoke to Moses, saying, Speak to the children of Israel, and let them turn and encamp before the village, between Magdal and the sea, opposite Baalezephon. Before them shalt thou encamp by the sea. And Pharaoh will say to his people, As for the children of Israel, they are wandering in the land, for the wilderness has shut them in. And I will harden the heart of Pharaoh, and he will pursue after them. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his host, and in all the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. And it was reported to the king of the Egyptians that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh was turned, and that of his servants was against the people. And they said, What is this that we have done to let the children of Israel go, so that they should not serve us? Listen, really they're hot because they gave them all this gold and silver, and because people are like, we're coming back, right? We're just going out there to sacrifice to our God. It's all this stuff is going on, and then Pharaoh finds out that they're really actually on the way up out of here. Oh, come on, right? He's sad about it. The people are sad about it. Now they're like, I don't know what we was thinking to let him go. We should have just died, I guess. Man, this stuff is so wild. I'm sorry. Let me just keep reading. Woo, get myself back on track. And I will harden the heart of Pharaoh, and he shall pursue after them. And I will be glorified in Pharaoh, and in all his host, and in all the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord. And they did so. Verse 5. And it was reported to the king of the Egyptians that the people had fled, and the heart of Pharaoh was turned, and that of his servants against the people. And they said, What is this that we have done to let the children of Israel go, so that they should not serve us? So Pharaoh yoked his chariots, and led off all his people with himself, having taken also 600 chosen chariots, and all the cavalry of the Egyptians, and rulers over all. And the Lord hardened the heart of Pharaoh, king of Egypt, and of his servants, and pursued after the children of Israel. And the children of Israel went forth with a high hand, and the Egyptians pursued after them, and found them encamped by the sea. And all the cavalry, and all the chariots of Pharaoh, and and the horsemen, and his hosts were before the village, over against Baal-zephon. And Pharaoh approached, and the children of Israel, having looked up, beheld, and the Egyptians encamped behind them, and they were very greatly terrified. And the children of Israel cried to the Lord, and said to Moses, Because there was no graves in the land of Egypt, hast thou brought us forth to slay us in the wilderness? So they're saying that because everybody died there already and there was nowhere to bury them, you brought us out here to get killed, bro? But keep in mind, all of this that has happened is that only now, do they really feel like they've been duped. So they all came. Did you hear the level? His host, all of his cavalry, chosen horsemen, okay, and a whole bunch of people. Understand this, that this weakens the forces of the Egyptians to be able to fight against the sea people, whom they were still able to stave off. That's how powerful the Egyptians were. We're going to keep going. And the children of Israel were sure, like, it's over, bruh. Like, it's over. However, let's going to keep reading. Verse 11. Excuse me, in the middle of it. What is it that thou hast done to us, having brought us out of Egypt? Verse 12. Is it not the word which we spoke to thee in Egypt, saying, Let us alone, that we may serve the Egyptians? They're like, bro, leave us alone, bro. We'll just serve these people, man. It's not a big deal, right? For it is better for us to serve the Egyptians than to die in this wilderness. And Moses said to the people, Be of good courage, stand and see the salvation which is from the Lord, which he will work for us this day. For as ye have seen the Egyptians today, ye shall see them again no more forever. The Lord shall fight for you, and ye shall hold your peace. And the Lord said to Moses, Why criest thou to me? Why criest thou to me? Speak to the children of Israel, and let them proceed. And do thou lift up thy rod, and stretch forth thy hand over the sea, and divide it. And let the children of Israel enter into the midst of the sea on the dry land. Stop right there. So the Lord is like, bro, why are you pretty much like, why is all this happening? What's all this commotion? Right on? Lift up your rod, right, and point it towards the sea. The people, it sounds just like black people. You're like, man, I could have been doing this and this instead of this. As opposed to trying to get free from up under the yoke that's so heavy on them. Anyway. Because you can get used to anything, man. Verse 16. And do thou lift up thy rod, and stretch forth thy hand over the sea, and divide it. And let the children of Israel enter into the midst of the sea, on the dry land. And lo, I will harden the heart of Pharaoh, and of all the Egyptians, and they shall go in after them. And I will be glorified upon Pharaoh, and on all his host, and on his chariots and horses. And all the Egyptians shall know that I am the Lord, when I am glorified upon Pharaoh, and his chariots, and his horses. And the angel of God, the angel that went before the camp of the children of Israel, removed and went behind. And the pillar of cloud also removed from behind them, and stood behind them. And it went between the camp of the Egyptians and the camp of Israel, and stood. And there was darkness and blackness, and night passed, and they came not near to one another during the whole night. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the Lord carried back the sea with the strong south wind with all the night, and made the sea dry, and the water was divided. And the children of Israel went into the midst of the sea on the dry land. And the water of this was a wall on the right hand and a wall on the left hand. Come on, I've been telling you all about those walls of water for a long time. And the Egyptians pursued after them, and went in after them, and every horse of Pharaoh, and his chariots, and his horsemen, into the midst of the sea. Verse 24. And it came to pass in the morning watch, that the Lord looked over forth on the camp of the Egyptians. This is the morning watch. Come on now. This is deep. Morning watch. And the Lord's looking over. So guess what's going on? There's angels keeping watch all night. Going forth. That the Lord looked forth on the camp of the Egyptians through the pillar of fire and cloud, and troubled the camp of the Egyptians, and bound the axle trees of their chariots, and caused them to go with difficulty. And the Egyptians said, Let us flee from the face of Israel, for the Lord fights against the Egyptians. And the Lord said to Moses, Stretch forth thine hand over the sea, and let the water be turned back into its place, and let it cover the Egyptians coming both upon the chariots and the riders. And Moses stretched forth his hand over the sea, and the water returned to its place toward day, and the Egyptians fled from the water. And the Lord shook off the Egyptians into the midst of the sea, and the water returned, and covered the chariots, and the riders, and all the forces of Pharaoh, who entered after them into the sea. And there was not left of them even one. But the children of Israel went along the dry land, in the midst of the sea. And the water was to them a wall on the right hand and on the left. So the Lord delivered Israel in that day from the hands of the Egyptians. And Israel saw the Egyptians dead by the shore of the sea. And Israel saw the mighty hand, the things the Lord did to the Egyptians. And the people feared the Lord, and they believed God, and Moses his servant. It's powerful, ain't it? Having said that, I appreciate your time. No need to elaborate on any of this. We'll talk about it later. Spiritual Gumbo, out.